Peter and John see the evidence, the empty tomb, and the light is beginning to go on for them, but not for Mary, not yet. She's not at the tomb yet. Where is she? Apparently, after racing to get Peter and John, we don't know how far that was, she's delayed somehow, but she's making her way back to the tomb. She gets back and they're gone. Verse 10, the disciples had returned to the place where they were staying. The third picture that we have here is the picture of Mary back at the tomb a second time, this time by herself. Verse 11, but Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she was crying, she stooped and looked into the tomb. She saw two angels in white sitting where Jesus' body had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. Just like Peter and John, she's looking in the tomb, she's looking at the evidence to deal with it herself. That is so true to life. One of the sad things for adult parent Christians who are parents is when young people grow up in the church, but then they leave the home and they lose their faith. And part of the reason for that is they've never made their faith their own. You know, your faith has to be your faith. You have to grapple with the questions. My parents believed, but I'm not going to stand before God someday with my parents. My preacher believed, but I'm not going to stand before God someday with my preacher. I'm not going to deal with the questions. My preacher doesn't deal with them. You got to deal with them yourself. Mary had to deal with the questions herself. And God reveals himself to Mary. She sees two angels. Doesn't recognize that they're angels. That shouldn't shock us. In Hebrews chapter 13 in the New Testament of the Bible, it says that sometimes people will entertain angels and not realize that they're angels. These angels didn't have wings. I'm not sure that angels ever had wings. Neither did they give her the benefit of like having a baseball cap with a big A and a halo on it to say, hey, I'm an angel. 3 of you maybe appreciate that one. But you have to appreciate how humble God is. One of the things that strikes me through the resurrection appearances is the humility of God. How's God, if you are proclaiming the resurrection of Jesus, what do? Send angels who look like people to Mary? I send angels that are about as big as the Washington Monument to the chief priests. Maybe with a sword that's bigger than the Washington Monument to Pilate to say, Pilate, I want to talk about truth now. God is so humble. Sends humble angels to Mary. Verse 13, they said to Mary, woman, why are you crying? Because they've taken away my Lord, she told them, and I don't know where they've put him. Having said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know it was Jesus. Why she did not know, the Bible doesn't tell us. Perhaps, I know part of it is she's not looking for Jesus. You know, she's not expecting to see Jesus. Perhaps it's because her eyes are so blurred with tears. I wouldn't be surprised at all if her head is to the ground, not even looking up. Maybe she sees some feet. John 15 reads, Jesus said to her, woman, why are you crying? Who is it that you're seeking? It's worth noting that these are the first recorded words of the resurrected Christ. Again, notice the humility. If an NCAA basketball player makes an important shot, he's going to let everybody know. If a linebacker makes a tackle, he's going to strut around like it's he discovered the cure for cancer. Jesus Christ has just conquered death. And what's his first question? A tender question. What's his first words? A tender question from Mary. Why are you crying? Verse 15 continues, supposing that he was a gardener, she replied, sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've put him, and I'll take him away. Again, it's interesting. Jesus has just done the most important thing. He has just done the most powerful thing in history, and yet he doesn't appear like Caesar. He doesn't appear like Alexander the Great. He doesn't appear with pomp and circumstances. He appears like a servant. Mary actually confuses him for a gardener. I'm personally challenged by that because I thought, how often is it that people confuse me for a servant? Do you think our world would be a better place if we would all be more comfortable with people confusing us with just being servants? Nothing but servants. Mary, Jesus said to her, verse 16, and turning around, she said in Aramaic, Rabboni, very tender way of saying teacher. Jesus speaks the name of Mary. She hears, changes everything. Again, Jesus didn't reveal himself to Mary by telling her who he is, but by speaking her name, telling her who she is to him. Tasker said, never was a one-word utterance more charged with emotion than this. Don't cling to me, Jesus told her. What would you do if you were Mary at that point? You know, your world had been ended a few moments ago. All weekend, that Saturday had been the worst Sabbath of your life. And now Jesus is alive. She clings, don't cling to me since I've not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and tell them that I'm ascended to my Father and to your Father, to my God and to your God. She doesn't want to let the moment go, and who can blame her? You ever have experiences like that with God? I've been reading about firsthand accounts of revivals in the 19th century. And one of the things that they all have in common is when people come, they will come and worship and encounter God and they don't want to go. It's not like they're in a hurry to leave after the service. They weep and they pray and they repent and they keep worshiping and they keep praying because they say they sense the presence of God and they just don't want to leave it. And so they would worship for hours. And that brought revival because the presence of God was just so real. We can understand Mary's experience here. She wants to hold on to this moment. But Jesus says, you can't. Can't stay here, Mary. Mountaintop moments are not meant to last. Oswald Chambers writes, we're not made for the mountains, or for the sunrises, or for the beautiful attractions in life. Those are simply intended to be moments of inspiration. We're made for the valley, the ordinary things of life. And this is where we have to prove our stamina and strength. Anybody feeling like you're walking in darkness, like your marriage is feeling dark, your children are walking in darkness, you're feeling in the valley financially or with your career, maybe you're discouraged about the direction of the country, the direction of the world. Mary's example, the disciples' example teaches us we can move from darkness to life because Jesus Christ is resurrected.